Hello, my name is Cheyenne Slack, and this is my journalistic piece on the Black Lives Matter movement. What was once simply a rallying cry has quickly turned into one of the biggest social movements ever, with protests sparking all over the world. Several millions in the United States alone have participated in this movement. But what is the Black Lives Matter movement? Why is it here, and what is it doing? To answer these questions, I did a deep dive into the history of America and asked the people leading this movement. This video contains content that may be disturbing for some viewers. So, how did we get here?
It's just kind of a slow burn type of thing. Obviously, people have been fed up with police brutality and systemic racism for a long time. But, it's always been there. And I think having a president who kind of gave people a free pass to do and say racist things definitely did not help. And at a certain point, it just kind of became necessary to make a very public and very loud push back. I think it was inevitable, but I think it's necessary. The elected officials, are supposed to be representing us, and they're not representing us. And it doesn't need to be some or most of us, it needs to be all of us. And we're not being represented. And, it's kind of like a situation where somebody tells you that they know what you want or they know what's best for you and don't actually ask you for your input. People of all different types of ethnicities being discriminated against. And I feel like it's very easy to find ways to take us out of the process.
That there's been so much Black oppression, period, throughout America. And I feel like at this point we've reached a boiling point within the generation that we're in. There's movements that we feel need to be made. And the only way that we can do that is to make the society that we grew up in understand the pain that they put us through and that they put our ancestors through. You know what I mean? We're trying to make our voices heard, and we're trying to get people to understand that Black lives do matter. Because up to this point, they haven't really.
I think that the reason the Black Lives Matter movement even exists is because of the chaos that we as Black Americans have gone through, or just people of color have gone through. And it just kind of has been spewing out more, I think personally, when Trump was put into office, because he didn't even try to prevent the things that were happening in our communities. Like when there were shootings happening and violence with police brutality have been going on, he said nothing. He more in a sense encouraged it, by not speaking up. Let's open up the history book and start from there.
Yes, let's open up that history book, because to fully understand how we got here, one must start with the legacy of slavery. Beginning in 1619, African slaves were trafficked in large numbers to the Americas. But a key difference between slavery in African nations and slavery in America is that African slaves were serving for crimes and also had the ability to rise in ranks. In America, Africans suffered from a much more heinous chattel slavery until 1865. For generations, we treated people of color as if they were not worthy of sympathy, committing many unspeakable crimes. We prohibited Black people from learning to read or write and restricted their movement and behavior. White America excused their actions by deeming African Americans less than human. In the media, they were depicted as unworthy, evil, and different in every meaning of the word. And when slavery ended, this did not. These stereotypes became the truth for many, instilling bias and hate that has yet to dissipate. Government-sanctioned racism, such as prohibiting access to impactful and higher education, loans, and healthcare, as well as using redlining to ensure lack of investment in Black communities and zero access to better living circumstances, resulted in the gross disparities we see today. These practices of oppression have resulted in egregious wealth and health gaps when comparing white and Black families. The average income of a white family is 6 times that of a Black one. So, despite slavery being over, the punishment for being Black never ended. When the 13th Amendment passed, slavery as we know it ended, but it began to exist in another form. This amendment abolished slavery except in punishment for a crime. So, the government criminalized Blackness in every way possible and over-policed communities of color to ensure that they would remain afflicted. This would be the reasoning behind black people making up 40% of the incarcerated population, while only making up 13% of the U.S. population. It also helps to explain black people being 3 times more likely to die by the hands of a police officer. Now, looking at all of this, which doesn't even scratch the surface of the act of suppression at work right now, it's not hard to see how we met this breaking point in history. This movement clearly has a lot of meaning behind it, but what does it mean for everyday people?
For me, it just means getting people to understand that there are boundaries, that there's things that need to be heard. You can't marginalize people. Just because my hair is different from yours or because I'm different from you, that doesn't mean that I'm less than you and that you get to just do whatever you want or say whatever you want around me because you think I'm different. I'm done trying to explain to people that I'm biracial and that I'm not necessarily one type of person. Like I am who I am, and my race doesn't define me. The way that I speak doesn't define me. My education doesn't define me. I am who I am because I am who I am.
Hope, peace. At this point, I think I've kind of dissociated a bit because I've been so scared and so just afraid of the things that have been going on in our communities. As a Black woman, it's already terrifying. So the Black Lives Matter movement kind of just gives me a sense of safety as well, you know? Like, they're there to speak for me and to stand up for me because no one else will. It's terrifying being a Black woman in America because we are never listened to. Our voices are unheard, and we basically have a giant target on our backs.
Personally, it just kind of struck a different chord because, a lot of the stuff that's been happening in the St. Louis area, especially since like Michael Brown and, I feel like if you pay attention to the news, you see something every couple of days. It feels like, I'm a Black man in America in 2020 where we have what feels like almost government-sanctioned racism, and it trickles down to like the smallest level on like a local scale. And, like it doesn't matter how I'm dressed or where I'm at. Like I still come off as threatening to some people, and there's not really anything I can do about that. That's just the way that they see me. And, I have a problem with that. So I'd like to use my voice in whatever I can, in any way that I can, to address that and just make it so that people can at least, even if they don't understand, that people are aware. They're like, hey, we're not okay with this, and this is not okay.
Simply put, this is not okay. People of color are tired of being put down and tired of feeling like they're in danger. So, what has this movement really achieved? The Black Lives Matter movement began with the heartbroken words of one woman in 2012, Alicia Garza, in response to the death of Trayvon Martin. Figures like Dr. Frank Leon Roberts, Opal Tometi, and Patrisse Cullors used their platforms to raise awareness about racism and police brutality and spread the Black Lives Matter message. For years, activists worked together to mobilize communities and make change. Subsequently, since the tragic death of George Floyd, the movement has exploded, reaching millions of people all over the world. In a matter of months, crucial conversations have been shared, opening the eyes of many who have been blinded by their privilege and creating much-needed allies. Not only this, globally, brands have been called out for their lack of diversity, multiple companies announcing initiatives to create a more diverse work environment. Racist and outdated logos have been retired, as well as Confederate flags banned from NASCAR, the Confederate flag on the Mississippi flag removed, and Confederate statues taken down after all these years of intimidation. Millions of dollars have been raised for Black activism, ensuring an outreach never before seen. The youth has subsequently been strategically mobilized, forcing the hand of local and federal governments. Now, multiple states have come forward with plans to reduce police budgets, instead investing in community health and services. A multitude of states have brought forth legislation to ban the use of chokeholds by a police officer, the use of no-knock warrants, and requiring officers to intervene and report when excessive force is used. Not only this, but ridding of qualified immunity has become part of a national conversation, prompting legislators to act when a police officer murders someone. Because of qualified immunity, most police-related deaths go unpunished. But now, in unprecedented numbers, police officers are being immediately fired, charged with a crime, and even sometimes convicted for their negligence. Democrats in the House have even proposed police reforms, attempting to ban the use of chokeholds, no-knock warrants, and require accountability on a federal level. We have never in the history of America had so many eyes on the tragedies of systematic racism and white supremacy, and that is changing how our legislators act on it. The Black Lives Matter movement has sent shockwaves through this nation and accomplished change that many have only ever dreamt of. With the whole nation watching and the youth energized and informed like never before, this movement isn't going anywhere anytime soon. We have and will continue to make positive change, and we will not stop until Black lives really do matter. America sells itself as the land of the free, home of the brave. Isn't it about time America lived up to its promises? Find out how you can get involved at blacklivesmatter.com.